They call you antisocial because you don't chase every conversation, every crowd, or every meaningless connection. But deep down, you know that's not true. You're not antisocial, you're selective. You've simply reached a level of awareness where you can no longer pretend small talk feeds your soul. You crave depth, not noise. You observe before engaging. You'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who make you feel unseen. The truth is, your silence isn't rejection, it's protection. You've learned that not everyone deserves access to your energy, your thoughts, or your peace. While others scatter their attention across dozens of shallow relationships, you keep your circles small, your standards high, and your focus sharp. And that choice, that quiet, intentional distance, is what makes you powerful. If you've ever been misunderstood for being too quiet, too private, or too withdrawn, this video will remind you that solitude isn't weakness, it's discernment. You'll understand why selective people don't isolate out of fear, they isolate out of clarity. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Brainy Quiet Mind. This space is for thinkers, observers, and calm souls who see the world differently. And tell me in the comments, do you prefer peace over popularity? If you've watched till the end, comment quiet strength so I'll know you're one of the few who understand that silence isn't distance, it's depth. You value meaningful connections over surface-level interactions. For you, conversations have never been just about words. They've always been about energy. You don't crave attention, you crave alignment, the kind of connection that feels genuine, unforced, and real. That's why small talk exhausts you. It feels hollow, like filling silence for the sake of comfort instead of truth. You've learned that most people talk to avoid being seen while you talk to connect. And that difference makes you stand out or, to some, seem distant. But you're not distant, you're discerning. You'd rather wait for one meaningful exchange than waste your time in a room full of empty voices. When you meet someone who speaks with depth, you feel it instantly, like a calm wave hitting still water. Their words resonate, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. You can sense intention behind tone, emotion behind pauses, and authenticity behind eyes that don't look away. That's what you value, people who don't just speak, but mean what they say. It's why you take longer to open up and why so few get to see the full version of you. You're not guarding your heart out of fear, you're protecting it out of wisdom. You've outgrown the need to impress or be included. You don't chase friendships, you recognize alignment. If a conversation feels shallow, you naturally drift away. If someone's presence feels genuine, you lean in. That's how you maintain your peace, by letting connection happen naturally instead of forcing it for acceptance. People might label you as antisocial, detached, or even arrogant, but what they don't see is that you're simply preserving what others give away too easily: your focus, your trust, your vulnerability. True connection to you isn't built on constant communication, it's built on understanding. It's when silence feels comfortable, when words aren't needed to prove closeness. You'd rather have one soul who truly understands you than 1,000 who never will. That's not isolation, that's intention. And that's why your connections, though few, are strong, grounded, and lasting. You're not hard to know, you're just impossible to fake connection with. Because once you've tasted depth, surface level will never satisfy you again. Silence helps you understand people before you let them in. You've learned that silence is more revealing than speech. While most people rush to fill every quiet moment with words, you let the silence linger, because that's when people show who they really are. In stillness, their masks slip, their tone changes, their energy speaks louder than anything they could ever say. You watch how they react to pauses, how comfortable they are with calm, and whether they listen or just wait for their turn to talk. That's your hidden advantage. You read people not through what they tell you, but through what they reveal when they think you're not paying attention. Silence for you isn't awkward, it's informative. It allows space for truth to surface. You notice the small details others miss, the hesitation in someone's voice when they lie, the forced laughter that hides insecurity, the shift in body language when intentions aren't pure. You've realized that silence has its own kind of rhythm, and if you listen closely enough, it tells you everything you need to know. That's why you don't rush to open up. You understand that trust isn't earned through time, it's earned through observation. You let people talk, you listen, and you watch. You study their patterns, not their promises. Because while words can be rehearsed, energy cannot be faked. You can feel when someone's kindness is genuine or when it's a disguise for self-interest. That's why your circle is small. Not because you reject people, but because you filter carefully. Silence gives you clarity. It allows you to see who truly respects your peace and who only wants to disturb it. And what's powerful is how calm you stay during this process. You don't need to test anyone. You simply let them reveal themselves. People often confuse your quietness for disinterest, not realizing it's discernment. You're not cold. You're calculating compatibility. You're protecting your energy from emotional noise. In a world obsessed with constant talking, your silence is your shield. It keeps chaos out and authenticity in. It's how you see beyond appearances, how you avoid heartbreak before it starts, and how you maintain peace while others chase validation. You don't fear silence, you trust it, because in that quiet space, everything false eventually exposes itself. You feel drained by small talk, but energized by deep conversation. There's a reason why small talk feels like noise to you. It's because it doesn't feed your mind or soul. Conversations about the weather, gossip, or daily routines feel like wading through static. You participate out of politeness, but internally, you're counting the seconds until you can escape. It's not arrogance, it's energy awareness. Your mind craves substance. You long for words that spark insight, emotion, or revelation, conversations that peel back layers instead of adding more noise to the surface. When someone speaks from a place of authenticity, you feel it instantly. The tone changes, time slows. You lean in without realizing it because that kind of exchange doesn't drain you, it recharges you. Deep conversation feels like oxygen to your soul. You walk away lighter, sharper, and more alive. That's the paradox of your personality. You might seem quiet or introverted, but when a conversation has meaning, you come alive in ways few people have seen. It's not that you dislike people, you just crave truth in a world addicted to distraction. You've noticed how most conversations today revolve around performance, people talking to be liked rather than to connect. That's why you've built an internal filter. You don't waste energy explaining yourself to those who only hear to respond. Instead, you save your depth for the few who actually listen. You know that not everyone can handle the weight of real conversation, the kind that challenges, questions, and heals at the same time. But when you find someone who can, you give them your full presence, no phone, no distraction, just two minds connecting in rare honesty. This is why people often remember their conversations with you long after they end. You ask questions that linger, that make them think differently about themselves or their lives. You turn words into mirrors that help people see truth, not in judgment, but in understanding. That's your quiet magic. So yes, small talk will always exhaust you, not because you're antisocial, but because you operate on a deeper frequency. You're not here to fill silence. You're here to create meaning. And when you find those rare souls who can meet you there, conversation becomes more than communication. It becomes connection. You'd rather spend time alone than fake interest in the wrong company. There comes a point when pretending feels heavier than loneliness. You've reached that point where forced laughter, empty conversations, and pretending to care about things that don't matter simply exhaust you. You no longer feel guilty for choosing solitude over shallow company because for you, being alone isn't a punishment, it's a reset. It's where you breathe, think, and return to your real self after a world full of noise tries to pull you away from it. You've sat in crowded rooms surrounded by people and still felt unseen. You've smiled out of habit while your mind whispered, "You don't belong here." That realization isn't sadness, it's clarity. It's the moment you understand that peace is better than pretense. You'd rather sit in silence with your own thoughts than waste energy trying to fit into spaces that don't match your soul. It's not that you dislike people, it's that you value authenticity too much to settle for imitation. When you're alone, you're not lonely. You're recharging. Your solitude is filled with reflection, creativity, and awareness. You think about who you're becoming, not who you're supposed to impress. You plan, dream, and build emotional strength in silence. That's something people who fear their own company can't understand. That solitude can be powerful when you use it with intention. It's where you learn to hear your intuition again, the voice that gets drowned out when you're surrounded by the wrong crowd. And over time, you start to see the difference between being liked and being aligned. You realize that fake company gives you momentary distraction, but real connection gives you lasting peace. So you wait, you stop chasing and start attracting because real energy recognizes real energy. People might call you distant or detached, but they don't see that you're protecting your mind from conversations that drain and interactions that dim your light. You've learned that it's better to eat alone in peace than feast with people who make you question your worth. That's why you walk away so easily now, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You've discovered the truth. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's self-respect in its purest form. Your boundaries aren't walls, they're filters for peace. People often mistake your boundaries for distance, but they don't understand what it took for you to build them. You didn't wake up one day and decide to pull away. Your boundaries were forged from years of emotional noise, disappointment, and giving too much of yourself to people who didn't value it. You used to think saying yes made you kind, that understanding everyone made you strong, but then you realized without boundaries, kindness becomes self-destruction. So now every no you say is an act of peace, not rejection. Your boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting your energy from what doesn't align. You no longer let everyone have access to your time, emotions, or thoughts. Not because you've become cold, but because you've learned that not everyone deserves the warmth you bring. Some people drain, others inspire. Boundaries help you tell the difference, and when people get upset about them, it only proves why you needed them in the first place. You've seen what happens when you let your guard down for the wrong reasons, how quickly empathy turns into exhaustion. That's why now you choose peace over pleasing. You answer messages when you feel ready, not out of guilt. You leave conversations that feel forced. You don't argue with people who twist your words just to feel right. You protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And what's powerful is how calm your life has become since you learned this truth. You no longer chase understanding or closure from others. You've replaced over-explaining with silence. You've replaced over-giving with balance. The world calls that cold, but that's because they confuse emotional maturity with detachment. You know better now. Boundaries don't build walls. They build respect. They teach others how to treat you, and they remind you how much you're worth. The beauty of it all, you don't need to defend them anymore. Your peace speaks for itself. The people who belong in your life will understand your boundaries and appreciate them. The ones who don't will leave. And that's exactly the point. You've stopped chasing peace outside of yourself. You've built it within, one boundary at a time. You read energy more than words, and that guides your trust. You've learned that words are cheap. Anyone can say the right thing. What truly matters is the energy behind them. You can feel when someone's words don't match their vibration. It's not something you consciously analyze. It's instinctual. You pick up on tone, hesitation, micro expressions, even the silence between sentences. That's where truth hides, not in what people say, but in what their energy reveals. It's a quiet superpower that often saves you from chaos before it begins. When someone walks into a room, you don't just see them, you feel them. You sense tension masked by smiles, insecurity disguised as confidence, and hidden motives wrapped in kindness. You can tell when someone's interest is genuine or transactional. That's why you take your time before trusting anyone. You observe not to judge, but to understand, because you know that energy never lies. There have been moments when people tried to deceive you, their words polished, their stories rehearsed, but something inside you felt off. Your intuition whispered, "This doesn't feel right." Later you'd discover you were right all along. It's not magic, it's emotional intelligence. Your mind reads patterns, but your soul reads frequency. That's what keeps you safe in a world full of emotional illusions. This ability, however, comes with its own cost. You can't unsee what you feel. The energy of dishonesty lingers. Crowded places drain you because you absorb too much. Anxiety, sadness, pride, masks. That's why you often crave solitude. It's not isolation, it's cleansing. You retreat to recharge, to clear the static of other people's energy from your own. And once you do, your clarity returns sharper than ever. Trust for you isn't built through time or words. It's built through consistency of energy. You trust people whose presence feels light, calm, and honest, the ones who speak less but mean every word, the ones who don't manipulate the emotional temperature of the room but steady it. Those are your people. Rare, grounded, real. In the end, your energy radar doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. Because when you read energy instead of appearances, you stop falling for masks and start aligning with truth. You protect your time like it's sacred because it is. You've reached a stage where you no longer treat your time like it's endless. You've realized it's the one thing you can never get back, and that's exactly why you protect it with quiet intensity. You've wasted enough hours on conversations that went nowhere, people who drained your energy, and situations that didn't deserve your focus. Now, every moment feels like currency, and you spend it carefully. You give it only to what aligns with your peace, your growth, and your purpose. There was a time when you felt guilty for saying no. You stretched yourself thin just to make others comfortable. You replied instantly, showed up everywhere, and mistook availability for kindness. But that version of you learned the hard way that constant accessibility leads to emotional bankruptcy. Now you understand that protecting your time isn't selfish, it's survival. You've learned to say, "I can't make it," without explaining why. You've learned that not responding is sometimes the loudest boundary of all. Every hour you spend alone, reading, reflecting, creating, or just breathing adds strength to your mind. You've realized that solitude isn't empty, it's restorative. It's the place where ideas grow, where emotions heal, and where clarity whispers. You guard that space fiercely because you know how easily the world can fill it with distractions disguised as obligations. You're no longer impressed by busyness, you're impressed by peace. People who don't value your time will say you've changed, that you've become distant or too focused. But that's because they benefited from the old you who gave without limit. What they don't understand is that your time is your life in motion. Every yes means saying no to something else, your rest, your dreams, your sanity. So now you choose intentionally. And here's the paradox. The more you protect your time, the richer your life feels. You create space for things that truly matter, people who nourish your spirit, and moments that make you feel alive instead of drained. You've stopped chasing endless noise. You've started choosing silence, purpose, and depth. Because once you understand how sacred time really is, you never waste it on what doesn't grow you again. You're not cold or distant. You're emotionally intelligent enough to be selective. People often mistake your quietness for disinterest, your calm for arrogance, and your detachment for coldness. But the truth is, you've simply evolved beyond emotional chaos. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding unnecessary pain. You've learned that not every connection deserves your depth, and not every story needs your involvement. It's not that you don't care, it's that you've become wise enough to see where your energy flows and where it gets wasted. You used to give freely, your time, your empathy, your attention, to anyone who needed it. You believed that understanding everyone was your purpose. But with time, you discovered that understanding doesn't always mean belonging. Some people mistake empathy for weakness and kindness for availability. That's when you learn the power of being selective. You stopped letting just anyone access your emotional world because not everyone enters it with good intentions. Now you pay attention to consistency, not charm. You look at patterns, not promises. You watch how people handle truth, silence, and boundaries, because that's where their real nature shows. And when something feels off, you don't confront it with anger. You step back with grace. That's emotional intelligence, knowing that not every battle deserves your fire. You've learned that emotional maturity often looks like restraint, not reaction. People who haven't reached your level of awareness might call you distant because they can't feel your energy the way they used to. But what they don't realize is that your emotional selectiveness is protection, not rejection. You love deeply but wisely. You give completely, but only to those who have earned it. You've stopped chasing validation and started valuing peace. And that's a level of growth many never reach. You're not cold, you're clear. You don't ignore people, you filter them. You don't isolate, you recalibrate. And the irony is, this quiet strength, this grounded selectiveness, makes you more magnetic than ever. Because real ones feel it. They sense the depth behind your silence and the discipline behind your calm. You're not hard to love, you just refuse to be loved carelessly. And that's not distance, that's self-respect disguised as peace. When you start choosing peace over noise, solitude over shallow company, and purpose over people pleasing, you change. You stop explaining your boundaries because they're no longer open for discussion. You stop chasing understanding and start protecting your energy. That's when you realize being selective isn't about pride, it's about survival. It's how you stay grounded in a world that constantly tries to pull you in every direction. So if this message resonated with you, it's not because you're cold. It's because you've grown. You've evolved into someone who knows their worth without shouting it, someone who values energy alignment more than social validation. And that quiet power, it's what makes you unforgettable. If you've reached this far, you already know who you are. The calm in the chaos, the peace in the storm. Comment the word selective below so I'll know you watched till the end. And remember, your silence, your boundaries, and your presence are your greatest strength.